So, welcome back to week 10 tutorial. This week we'll be looking at two activities, isometric view and auxiliary views. But before we start that, can I get a volunteer from this session to create a Viber group for our tutorial session so that I can take attendance? So the way that I'll take attendance for this week and up to week 12 is every week I'll give you guys an activity to complete. You guys have to complete that activity, take a picture of it, and then post it to this discussion group that we're going to create in Viber. And if you do that by Sunday, you'll get attendance for the week. Clear? So for this week's activity to get attendance, you guys have to complete activity A and activity B of tutorial 8. So you're given the multi-views, third angle orthographic projections of two objects, and you're given all the dimensions. You guys have to create the isometric views for both objects using the correct tools. So using your set squares, using the correct linoids. So dark lines for visible lines, light lines for construction, hidden lines for hidden details. Make sure that you label all your dimensions correctly and you draw it all to scale. Once you've done that, you take a picture with your ID number. You post it to the Viber discussion group, and that's how you will get attendance. Okay, so can I get a volunteer to create the Viber group first? If you just leave your name and number in the Zoom chat, they'll be able to add. So any volunteers to create the group first? Any volunteer? That's what I was saying. Please, everybody just put your numbers in the Zoom chat. And that way, everybody, the person who's creating will be able to add you to the group. You either do it that way, or the person who's creating then send the link to the MM101 past session Viber chat, and then anybody there can join directly from there. So Shivneet, will you create the Viber group first? Okay, great. Thank you very much. So please, everybody, just leave your numbers in the chat, and you can be added directly to the Viber group. And this will be the group only for Friday tutorial session 3 to 4. So we've decided that this is probably the best way for us to try and keep track of attendance, especially if we have tutorial activities where it requires you guys to draw, because us trying to draw on the screen here using the tools in PDF will be more of a waste of time and not very effective. So isometric views is something that you're not all new to. You've had lots of experience with isometric views now. We've been doing for the past at least 5 weeks. So this should not take you more than an hour to do both. So if you do that, take a picture and then send it to the group chat before midday on Sunday. So before 12 p.m. on Sunday, you'll get attendance for week 10. So the first drawing is dimensioned in millimeters. The second one is dimensioned in inches. Okay. So when you're drawing this, you can either convert all these dimensions into millimeters and then draw it, or you can directly draw it using inches. I recommend converting, just so that you know the conversion unit between millimeters and inches. But if you decide not to, then that's fine as well. Is that clear to everyone as to how you'll get attendance for this week? And connectivity issues won't be accepted as a good excuse, because you've got whole of tonight, whole of Saturday, and whole of Sunday morning to work on it. So unless you're living in a place without any internet connection at all, there should be no issues for anybody. So this week's tutorial, like I said, is split between isometric views and auxiliary views. So this is part 2 to this week's tutorial. For attendance, you only need to do these ones, the isometric views. The auxiliary view will be part of your attendance for next week. So next week, when you send something to the group chat to get attendance, you'll be sending the auxiliary view from this week's tutorial. So this auxiliary view, along with one of the activities from next week's tutorial, which I'll let you know during the tutorial session next week. Okay, so if you guys want to work on this secondary auxiliary view now, just to get it out of the way, that's a great idea. Okay, so first things first, what is the purpose of drawing auxiliary views? Can anybody tell me or tell us? Why do we have auxiliary views? To show the true shape and true length of the object. Yes, that is the definition of why we have to draw auxiliary views. So we have learned so far that there are 6 principal viewing planes, okay? We have left, right, top, bottom, front, back. The 6 sides to a cube, basically. So we have 6 principal viewing planes. The whole reason why we have auxiliary views is because we cannot show the true shape or the true length of one of the details or one of the surfaces in any one of those 6 views. Okay, so this is true when we have inclines or oblique surfaces, like Shustia said. When we have inclined planes or inclined surfaces and oblique surfaces, we won't be able to see the true shape or true length using any one of the principal viewing planes. So to remedy that, we've come up with a separate view, which is projected parallel to the inclined surface or oblique surface. And on that projection, auxiliary view, it will show the true shape and true length of the inclined surface or oblique surface. So we have 2 types of auxiliary view. We have a primary auxiliary view and a secondary auxiliary view. Primary auxiliary views are used to display inclined surfaces. Okay. So if we had just an inclined surface on one of the principal views, say on the top view, say instead of, let's say in this case, this wasn't here, and this was instead represented by a straight line going across, and this was an inclined surface. Yeah? Say in this case, we would just project a primary auxiliary view. But in this case, we have a inclined surface on more than one principal view, which means it's an oblique surface, and which means we have to project a secondary auxiliary view. So a secondary auxiliary view is basically projected from your primary auxiliary view. Okay. So once the Viber group is set up, I will send a link to a YouTube video that uses this exact example as a way to draw secondary auxiliary views. It's very useful. And the skill of being able to draw auxiliary views is time or tradition for engineer drawings. So you may wish to use some of these skills in your final project. Maybe draw some auxiliary views for inclined surfaces or oblique surfaces in your designs. Some of you may be wishing to do that. And bear in mind, as we mark your final projects, we will be very impressed if you start to incorporate certain concepts that have been taught in MM101. Okay, so the more detailed drawings you add, the more impressed you'll be, the better your mark will be. Okay. So I will show you the solution for this auxiliary view and try and explain a little bit, but it gets a bit difficult when I'm trying to explain it looking at a 2D drawing. It'll be a lot easier if you guys go and watch the video that I'll send you. But try anyways. So this is the solution for this week's tutorial, the auxiliary section. So like I was saying, we have to project the primary auxiliary view first. So in this case, we've decided to project it from the top view, but you can also project it from the bottom view or the front view. It's up to you. So we project it from the top view and we have our ground plane XY. We project all of our lines parallel to this line here, BF, which is the top corner of our inclined surface or oblique surface. We project all lines that are parallel to this from each of the points. So C, E, D, A, B, and F. Project them all out. And anywhere along this length, we then mark a line that is perpendicular to those parallel lines. And this is our X bar, Y bar, or X dash, Y dash. And this is our ground plane, but in the primary auxiliary view. And in order to get our dimensions, we take 2 steps back. So we take our dimensions not from this view, but from the second view, a step backwards. So the distance from the ground plane to A is the distance from this ground plane to A, distance from ground plane to B, same as ground plane to B, so on and so forth for all the different points. Now, what this primary auxiliary view has done is basically turned this inclined surface and made it go into the page. Now it's almost, now we can't see it, it's completely flat and it's going straight into the page. The next move for us to now rotate it. Rotate it so that we can see this whole shape parallel to the picture plane or the viewing plane. Okay. Now, the way we do that is we have to create a secondary viewing line. So VW. This is perpendicular to the plane BF. And the whole reason why it's perpendicular is because we are essentially rotating the top view about the line BF so that this surface now comes into view and looks something like this. Again, watching the video will make a lot more sense, but that is how you do it. And then again, when you take dimensions, you take 2 steps back. So you don't take dimensions from here, you take dimensions from here. So WV to point F, WV to point F, WV to point D, WV to point D, so on and so forth. Link them all up in the order that they are. So whatever this is, the bottom plane, A, B, D, all connected. On ABC, sorry, ABC all connected, so on and so forth. Create your 2 faces. So this is now your, when looking at it, this is your front plane, and this is your top plane. And that is how you develop your secondary auxiliary view. Okay. So again, it'll make a lot more sense when you watch the video. So I'll send it to you guys after this. So you will have to do this activity and submit it next week for next week's attendance, along with a certain activity from next week's tutorial, which I will mention during the tutorial session next week. Okay. So from this tutorial session, I received only 3 draft reports. So project 58, 61, and 66. Other groups, I'm not quite sure what happened. I think there's one more group from this session, 1 or 2, I'm not sure. So I hope you guys know what you're doing. There isn't a project yet in any of the tutorial sessions that I'm taking where I've thought, okay, these guys are set, I don't need to say anything. There's been little bits here and there for all groups across the board. And that is to be expected, okay? This is your first design report. And the feedback session is almost as informative as attending a lecture, because you get direct feedback as to what you're doing and where you need to improve. Okay, so for those who haven't submitted, I hope you guys get to finish up your draft. For you guys, I'll be willing to take a look at it this weekend and next week if you want to send it through. But if you send it to me in week 12, that is too late. And even if I give you feedback, it'll be too late for you to make any changes. Okay. So the way that these tutorial sessions will go on from now until week 14 is for this week, week 10, next week, week 11, the week after that, week 12, we will have tutorial sessions. The tutorial activities will mostly be based on engineering drawing. So again, you'll have to draw something and then submit. These sessions will be relatively short, and I'll split the first half. I'll just discuss the tutorial and set the activity for you to do to submit. The second half I want to dedicate to discussing the project. And if you guys have any questions about the project, that's the time when you guys can ask me. Okay, we only have a limited time every week, face-to-face contact. So if you have questions, please don't be shy. Make sure you ask, because as it gets closer to the due date, I know I'll be getting a lot more questions. That was the case with the draft report the day before submission, and I got like 50 messages from different people asking what to submit and what sections to include and will it be graded and stuff like that. Oh, thank you, Shivneet. So yes, Shivneet sent the link to the MM101 group, pass group. So just go there and join. Only if you belong to this tutorial session. If you're in this tutorial session right now and you're just making up a session, please make sure that you join your appropriate tutorial session. And if you can't find the link, send me a message directly and I'll add you, if I am your tutor. If not, then let Joshua Larima or Captain know that you're needed to be added to the Fiverr group. So yes, like I was saying, the next 3 weeks we will have tutorials split between tutorial activity and project discussion. And then week 13, we won't have any tutorial. Week 13, we will give to you guys to work on your assignment, finish up your assignment, and work on your project presentation, okay? We've decided that we can't get rid of that aspect of the assessment for the project. So we will spend 2 hours. So your tutorial session will be extended to be 2 hours long on week 14. The 2 hours is still yet to be decided. It might be you guys go from 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock or from 2 till 4. I'm not sure yet. 2-hour tutorial session where each group will present for 15 minutes. Present a PowerPoint presentation or any kind of presentation you can develop, but you won't be presenting your report, okay? It has to be a presentation that you guys set up yourselves. You present your presentation and then there's a 5-minute section at the end for question and answers. And that is how we will do the assessment of your presentations. Everybody has to be present and everybody has to participate in the presentations, okay? So as well as coming up with your final report, full-on design report, you should also be working on a PowerPoint presentation. And maybe next week's tutorial, we'll discuss a little bit about how you set up PowerPoint presentations to be most effective, what to include, what not to include, how to make sure it's not cluttered and all that. I might discuss that next week. But for now, I hope you guys have gotten all the feedback. I hope it's useful and you guys understand what I mean by certain comments that I've passed. So for the team leaders who have gotten the feedback, does it all make sense? Have you discussed it with your group yet? Group leaders? Does the feedback make sense? Are you able to view the feedback? That's the first question. Okay. So a few students were confused. They thought I hadn't given them feedback. But hold on. Okay, you're able to see my screen? So for some of you, I have written in red at the bottom. Okay. And some of the group leaders or some of the students have thought that that's the only comments that I've passed. So if you go right through and you just at the end, you have a red comment, you think, okay, that's all that we need to change. But make sure when you go and open your project, you go to review and make sure that you show all markup. When you do that, all the comments appear on the right-hand side. And that is where I've put majority of my comments. Okay. Group leaders, are you aware of this? Okay, cool. Just wanted to make sure. So yeah, are there any questions based on the project? Any questions from this week's tutorial? No? Okay, good. Okay, guys, if there are no questions, I won't keep you too long. Thank you very much for attending. Hope to hear from you over the weekend if you have any questions. If not, then I'll see you all next week during our tutorial session. One more thing. Does everybody in this session have a assignment partner? Is anybody here without an assignment partner? Remember, the assignment is to be worked on in pairs only. You can't have more than 2 members in a group. You can have group members from any tutorial session. Doesn't just have to be from this tutorial session. You can partner up with anybody, but it has to be done in a partnership and you can't do it alone. So everybody has a assignment partner? Okay, great. Okay, guys, thank you very much for attending. Have a blessed weekend. I'll see you next week.